it's Jessie from Squeegee Ink and welcome back to Printer's Corner. This is where I answer all the questions you've given us over social media and I answer them in a little bit more detail. And also make sure to watch the end of the episode where I go into what the results of this week's community poll are. These are questions that I've given all the different screen printers and we see what's happening in the industry at the moment. This week's questions are all about what type of electric supply I have for my dryer. I've also got one about what I did with my old large format printer. And thirdly, what kind of flash dryer I'd recommend for manual printing. The first question is from Big Dog 111. And they said, "Hi, hopefully you can help as it looks like you have a dryer similar to the one I want. I'm looking at the Big Buddy Conveyor Dryer. Does this plug into a normal wall socket in the UK?" No, it actually doesn't. Not like a typical 13 amp wall socket that you'd put a radio in or anything like that. It needs 16 amp. The way that I did it was I got an electrician in and he installed a commando socket, which is a completely different setup. And it allows the dryer to draw enough electric from the fuse board. He also put in another little fuse board, and that's been working great. It was probably about £200 to £300 for his labour, but it's a very easy thing for a normal electrician to be able to do. So it shouldn't be too difficult to install. Now it works great. It's drawing enough power and it's also on its own little fuse board. So it's not affecting the draw of electric to the whole building or anything like that. The second question is from Salty Hen. They said, "What did you do with your old printer?" We recently did a YouTube video about large format printers and why I had to get a new printer and which one I chose and all that. And it's a really good question to ask with what to do with the old one, because you can't just take these ones down to the skip because they're so enormous. And they'd probably charge you at the local council. So the good thing is that a lot of these companies like Epson, who I got my printer from, they have to adhere to this protocol called the WEEE or WE, which is the Waste Electronic Equipment Charter. Basically, they have to come and collect it from you. So I basically filled in a really small form, just putting in the serial code and that type of thing. A company that Epson paid came, pulled it onto a van, and they've recycled it according to the kind of specs that they have to do. You just look up the responsibility of like whoever you bought the printer off, or even just call up their customer services and get them to take it off you. Because sometimes selling these printers secondhand, they're not really worth much to many other people. Our final question is from 0101 Robots, and they asked, "Which flash dryer do you recommend for manual printing?" I've only been through a couple of flash dryers, but the one I've got now has been really good. It was the BBC Black Flash. It's very consistent. It doesn't have that much technical things to it. Like you can't adjust the temperature or anything like that. You can adjust the height. It works really well on our carousel. I've never had any issues with it until very recently, because it does technically have a 13 amp plug when you get it. It's got this little adapter, and over quite a few years, it has burnt out recently. So it basically looks like the fuse is kind of melted or something. So I was a little bit concerned about it. So I just did what I did with my other dryer, my big conveyor dryer. I got an electrician in, they installed a commando socket again. So that's basically a 16 amp socket, and it's literally got its own little wall component. And that just means it can draw enough electric from, again, a separate little fuse board. It's not affecting the draw of electric to all my other machinery and equipment. And that just gives me peace of mind. So technically you can, but I would probably consider getting a 16 amp commando socket installed from a proper electrician, and just have peace of mind that it's going to be working as it should, and it's definitely drawing enough electric and therefore applying enough heat to your t-shirts when you're actually in production. So to round up this week's main question, which is your electrical supply strong enough for screen printing? It depends on what equipment you chose and what technical specifications that equipment has asked you to provide. So a lot of the hobby stuff you can just plug straight into a normal 13 amp wall socket. Whenever you're trying to draw a lot of electric and heat something up for a long period of time for a long print run, for example, if you're printing hundreds and hundreds of shirts and you're basically doing this professionally, that's when you have to start thinking about getting equipment that's larger, has a bigger capacity, and therefore needs to draw more electric. So you're probably going to have to get an electrician in. Or, best of all, you found yourself a commercial unit which has 3-phase and you don't have to worry about any of this. Now we're ready for this week's community poll.
Community poll.
This week's poll question was, what power supply does your dryer have? And about 10% said 13 amp, over a third said 16 amp, about 20% said 3-phase, and quite a lot of the rest of the people, so around 40%, said no idea. Why does it matter? It does matter actually, because you might not be allowing your components and your equipment to draw enough electric. You might eventually run into issues where your plug sockets are burning out, like what happened to us, and you're just not maybe being as efficient with your electric as you could be. So the best is really the 3-phase, because then you can plug in almost any large piece of equipment that's like professional grade. But yeah, see how far you get with your 13 amps. But the best thing to do is to actually contact a screen print supplier such as Screen Print World, because they have in-house technical people who can give you all the advice that they're getting direct from the equipment suppliers. So they're the best people to ask. If you're asking me, you're just getting my experience on what happened to me with one piece of equipment. So definitely ask your screen print supplier and they'll give you a really nice overview of what's the best practice to do from the beginning. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Printers Corner. Make sure to get involved by asking new questions for me using hashtag Printers Corner. And also check out the community tab on our YouTube channel to answer the community poll. And you can also answer old questions, see what other people are getting up to, and you can add any comments or questions in there as well. And I hope you have a great week printing. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time.